Welcome to Local Leverage, your competitive edge in business. Today's guest exemplifies the E-myth, the transition from technician to true business owner. He took an exterior cleaning operation in British Columbia and transformed it into a fully systematized and self-sustaining business. His approach to building structure, hiring strategically, and leveraging automation has made his company a standout model of operational excellence in the home services industry. But he didn't stop there. In 2020, he launched a coaching company that helps other service-based entrepreneurs do the same thing, shifting from working in the business to leading it like an executive. Through his proven framework, he helps business owners break past the $20,000 a month ceiling to 5x their business by dramatically increasing profitability and building systems that scale without the owner being the central cog in the machine. Today, we're opening up his playbook on systems and processes, customer acquisition, and team building. Please join me in welcoming the founder of Revive Services and home service business coach, David Moerman. David, welcome to the show.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me on. This is going to be lots of fun.
Yeah, I want to jump right in. I'd like to start with Revive and just understand a bit about how you built that business before we kind of bridge into coaching and so forth. I'm curious. I mean, you started Revive and probably had a real big vision for that. When did you realize that your systems approach and process approach was the thing that catapulted you towards success?
Yeah, it's a great question. I started the business in 2016 with $3,000. I bought an Astro van and went into Home Depot and bought a really homeowner grade RYOBI pressure washer. Is kind of the lime green one that doesn't work so good, but it got my first 100 houses of cleaning done, which was good. So I'm kind of the mindset as an entrepreneur, just to get started and don't make things too fancy. So I got that business off the ground. And also at the same time, I ran across a book that a mentor of mine referred. It might even be, it's right here behind me.
Oh, the E-myth.
Yeah. So I really fell in love with Michael's book, how simple it was. And just to set context too, I had ran a residential painting business for about 7 years prior to 2016. So paid my way through college, got into real estate investment from profits made from that painting business. So I had some business chops for building a business before, but I had never heard about the word systems until I had read Michael Gerber's book, and then I went on to read it 13 times, I think is my last count that I've zipped through that book, because I try read it multiple times a year because I just find it super good. So it was reading through that I learned my painting businesses. I basically had a $100,000 income paying job, which is pretty good when you're 23, 24 years old. But I wanted to go about building Revive with more intentionality, that it wasn't Dave to be the main salesperson or the main manager. I had never had those skills before to actually build a business with a management structure. So that was always a passion of mine from the start. The only thing I wanted to do with Revive was a sprint to get Dave to be the most irrelevant person in the company and get the thing running without me. So it took me about 4 years to the day to do that. And then the last 4 years it's been on, I don't like the word automate, cruise control, effortless, but it can run without the owner, which is what I wanted to do from the start.
Yeah, so I love E-myth as well, and I think this is so pertinent to what you're focused on in your client base, right? Where as a coach, and so many folks get in and they are the technician or the trade person, and all of a sudden they're faced with all these new challenges. Now I'm a bookkeeper, now I'm an HR person, I'm a recruiter, I'm all these different things, and so I love the application of systems and process to make that scalable. For your business, for Revive, as you were going, what was the first system that you put in place, and why did you start there?
Yeah, that's a great question. The first thing we did was actually start to document out the processes we were doing actually in the field. So today I call them one-sheeters, basically standard operating procedures. And in a window cleaning, pressure washing business, I find a lot of owners that we coach will really complicate this step. So if I'm coaching someone with a window cleaning business, I would say I want it on one sheet, bullet point form. How do you clean the exterior of a window? And we started just making this binder at the time, and then we transferred it to a Google Workspace, but just a simple binder with standard operating procedures for the field. So at the time we were 5 services. We had 5 sheets of paper, bullet point for each one. And they, of course, evolved over time, but that was the first place that I started. And then still to this day, we use our job site checklist, which I was really proud. My team and I built that in the early days. It's a 10-step process because we've done now like 5,600 jobs, I think, on last count. So, everything was documented in 10 steps, whether we're doing a roof moss treatment or we're doing a window clean. We follow the same 10 things that have to occur on every single job. So that's our job site checklist, and we branded it nicely, laminated it, hang it in every truck, refer to it at team meetings. So those are some really key systems in the early days.
So it sounds like it's a living, breathing thing, and you're continually going back and refining it and talking about its use and all the rest. I love that. That's really cool. That's great. So tell me a little bit about the story. When did you realize, either through these processes, that you had the unlock essentially for other home service providers, and also the recognition of them struggling? What was that? When did you come to that realization, and how did that unfold?
Yeah, I think it was kind of funny, always in me a little bit from coaching. Like I came up through the student painting franchise system, specifically a franchisor called University First Class Painters. And I still remember back in 2015, like I was just a young student graduating at the time. I would like drive 4 hours if I heard that they were bringing on new franchisees, and they would just let me go to the front of the room and chat for 4 hours straight about, this is how I door knock, this is how I do an estimate. It's just like, I don't even think they paid me. They might have put me in a hotel room and we go out for dinner, but it's like, I just love the camaraderie of going out and transferring knowledge that I found was working for me. So I was never like officially in a coaching role until 2020. Is March someday in 2020, I think early March, before our country locked down. And I just started up an Instagram page, and I did a domain search for home service business coach, and nothing existed. So I got it on Instagram, and then I got the domain. And it wasn't until that year, I believe in September, a client at the time messaged me about getting on a coaching call. And he said, what is your rate for a 1 hour one-to-one call? And I had never, I was chatting to my wife. I wrote back, I'm like, it's $200. And he's like, cool, send me the link to pay. And I was like, crap, I don't have a payment link. I'd been on Zoom a couple times, but I just had no idea. And that's just how it got started. And within the course of 100 days, I had 8 people that I just booked up my whole Friday with these calls one by one. And I would make $1,600 in a Friday, which was awesome, because I'm like, it was very novel to me to make money online doing something that I love. And then grew from there to a point we needed to have, a group program because there was too many people. And then once I hit 40 clients myself, that's when I hired my support coach, who's now our head coach, and just kind of grew beyond there. But I think I've always known that I've been a bit weird in this industry, that generally guys and gals come up on the trades through they're the best person on the crew, right, and they have bad interactions with their boss, and then they quit and go and start this, dream for a better future with their own business. Or they'll be a pretty hotshot salesperson, again, confront with the boss and go out and sell on their own. So I didn't have either of those paths, and naturally I'm not a very handy person at all. My wife was giving me props today. I actually changed the light bulb I can change a light bulb, but there was 3 screws bolting on this fancy, so I had to take it down, and my 20-month-old son was watching me clapping. So it felt kind of good, but that's not a normal thing.
That's not normal for a home service.
No, definitely. So I came up as really a sales, marketing, young, hungry student. I learned the trade, but I was never like, stuck on the truck that a lot of these trades people get, and they fall in love with their product of quality and workmanship. And most of them, we are running a study internally in my consulting organization. Our average revenue of members that join with us are at about 190,000 of revenue. That's where listeners might say I'm at 300 or 90, but generally that's the average, where they hit their head on their ceiling and say, I'm making pretty good money here, but my lifestyle is just chaotic. So that's really where we come in, work with our members for a year to help put them on the path of solid systems for their business. And it's all taught out of the living chaos that I had scaling up 3 home service companies now. And my coaches this is the cool part, we don't let anyone coach in my consulting business unless they have come through as a student, grown their business, systematized it, they're vetted by Dave, and then boom, they're coaching. So it's a bit of a unique thing there. So hopefully I'm not rambling on.
No, it's great. I love it. I mean, I think your affinity for coaching is pretty on point with most founders or entrepreneurs, right? I mean, I think by makeup, we tend to be coaches. We tend to like to impart knowledge and share information. And so I think that's really cool. I'm curious what the onboarding process for HSBC, when you bring on a new client there, these folks that are maybe hitting that ceiling of 10 to 20 grand a month, and what's first? How do you evaluate where they are and what systems and processes need to be applied to each individual?
Yeah, it's a great question. Like, it's usually starts with just a simple assessment call, which is, the prospect just getting on a telephone call with our sales team to see, is it a good fit? And like, cat out of the bag, we actually only enroll purposely 15% of enrollment calls because we don't want to have a payment link on our website. This isn't a, $99 a month membership. You join, you kind of hack away at it. It's like full on. It's $10,000 to join the program for a whole year with us. So that is a high ticket offer for our avatar. It's a good amount of money. And so we want people showing up that are invested. We have over an 80% show up rate on our coaching calls, and we have a 100% on last check activity rate in our membership portal. So we're effectively selling our curriculum, which I'm 8,000 hours into building systems. Wow. So if someone's serious about growing a home service business for 10 grand, you get 8,000 of my brain. Like, here you go. 2 is the coaching that we touched on. And then 3 is just the community. I think community is a term tossed around a lot, but I do think when you find the word I more prefer is like your tribe or your brotherhood. You find your people in life, whether you're at a tennis club or you're at, I'm a young parent now. So you find, like, I take my son to soccer every weekend. I met another dad. He has a contracting business. He's my age. I'm like, that dude is my tribe. Like, you just find that person, whether that's a church or school or whatever. It's a very infectious thing. And I don't think we talk about enough running a business, because I've done it for 16 years. It's so incredibly lonely that only 3% of the entire population today has a tie to being a business owner, being an entrepreneur. So we think in a different way. You know how this is. We think different, we act different. And, I like to say your spouse can only take so much of your rambling. Sometimes it's nice to have a cohort and a brotherhood as well. I also think that it can be really lonely. And to that point about your spouse, I mean, there's things that are going on as an entrepreneur that you don't maybe feel comfortable taking to your spouse. You don't want to freak them out, because you're struggling with sales or whatever. And you also can't go to your employees in some cases. You've got to kind of toe this line. So it's a tough position. I'm all about the cohorts and kind of masterminds and people that are going through it with you that you can lean on. Yeah. Love that. And even on my calls, I have my clients intentionally share a win is great to celebrate, but everyone has to share on that call a struggle you're having, because we go on social enough, and exactly to your point, a leader has to hold it together. But that's a place we don't publicly share those calls ever. They're just literally our group closed circle, and it's just a beautiful place for people to actually open up and share.
Yeah, I think that's really important. And to the degree allow yourself to be vulnerable and bring vulnerability to those, you're going to get more from it. So that's cool. Yeah. So when you bring people in, maybe that are hitting that ceiling or that plateau, what's the most common issue that home service businesses at that stage are facing?
Yeah, the first thing, our first whole module, their first whole month in our program is just all around priority management and getting a handle of their own calendar. And so generally what we see with trends is you have an owner operator, the business relies on them, and they basically end up cannibalizing their personal lives and family lives in an effort for the business. And that includes evenings, weekends, early mornings, this and that. And so they're generally not taking care of themselves or their family because there's no time because the business is chaos. So for us, that usually takes a month and can take longer for the owner to do a serious time audit. And then we subscribe to the theory of what I call, I didn't make up the term, but it's called block scheduling. And so each day of the week will have a fundamental theme to what they're following. So, you know, personally, I just teach what I did. Tuesdays and Thursdays are sales days. Mondays are heavy kind of catch up from the weekend, administration, set the week, production day. Wednesdays, I actually allow my guys to go out in the field and jump on the tools. That's the one day a week they get to go do what they've always done. And then Friday mornings, I like finance. And one of our now coaches, who I worked with for 4 years, he grew a multi-million-dollar landscape business. He coined the term CEO Friday. And so he takes the whole Friday and he coaches his guys to do this. No one's calling you. You're in airplane mode and you're working on systems. You're reviewing your books. That is your day. And if you want to get a lot of stuff done, start chopping off a day of the week and you're going to get pretty serious about where your time goes. So that's the first biggest hurdle. That goes for bigger than just home service business, just business owners in general. Generally are not serious about their time. Yeah.
And I think, you know, if all of Friday, and that's 20% of your time focused on the business strategically is a lot. I mean, many entrepreneurs don't allow themselves that amount of time. I mean, maybe it's a 4-hour block even, but even that, it can be really empowering. Yeah, that's really good. So you mentioned kind of working on the tools and and the trucks, right? So many of these folks are reluctant to give up the tools and give up the truck. How do you go about, beyond just the time blocking, how do you go about getting them to understand the power of delegation, and what does that look like in the early days and then as it continues to evolve?
That's a great question. The biggest thing is what we're helping equip owners with is really fundamentally thinking about their business in a different way. And that's where delegation gets really tricky, because if an owner does not value their time and they still believe that they can do everything on their own, they kind of stay stuck in this rut of revenue. Because the thing is, what we do with our time tracking is we'll have the same 2,000 hours per year, right? And so when I'm working with a client, we just work backwards. If they want to make, $100,000 from their business take home, and you got the 2,000 hours, everything that owner touches needs to be $50 an hour. So if technically, economically speaking, if you could have someone do it for $49 an hour, you should take that deal. Now that's kind of a really small spread, but we usually want to see owners, number one, get the admin stuff off their plate. And there's, it's controversial. I totally understand keeping jobs in the country where the business is based, but I'm on the side of there are great people all around the world that can assist you with some administrative tasks. I've had a virtual assistant in my life for like over 6 years now, doing graphic design, posting on social media, answering inbound calls, making outbound calls, all these things that generally an owner's doing 3 to 4 hours a day, I would say, on their CRM, getting back to clients. And so whether you go hire your own VA, my buddy runs a VA, Ninja VA. They actually place VAs in your business that a number of our clients work with. You could also just go hire local, which I kind of prefer at times. It depends on your area too, where Revive was built is in one of the most affluent markets in the whole country. And we just traditionally found that local owners want to be talking to someone local. That's just what we found. So we'll still use a VA for other tasks. So it just depends on the business. But if the owner's running admin, that's the first mistake. My mentor always told me, he said, Dave, if you don't have an assistant, you are the assistant. And so, it's 40 hours a week to run a business. It's 40 hours a week to grow a business. Don't try and do both those jobs unless I've done it, right? I've done those 80-hour work weeks and I'm young and 20, but you fast forward, you get a partner, you get a mortgage, you get kids. One kid in my case, it's just different when your priority shifts. So that's number one. And then two is getting off the tools is a big one. And I used to coach the owners to get off the tools first, then hire for the office. And I've kind of pivoted that in the last couple seasons, just in working with hundreds of our members now. A lot of these owners do have a lot of technical knowledge in their brain that we usually see them have more of a proclivity and skill set to touching the tools versus touching the computer. So just, I would say 19 times out of 20, we'll say get an office admin first, and then we'll look to groom a lead technician. But, if you want to move your business from 200 grand a year to 400, 600, $1 million, you can't do that with the owner being the most skilled in the field. And that's why I picked cleaning in the first place, is because in our case, we ran a 3-week boot camp. We could bring someone off cold from Indeed, Craigslist, wherever, through our boot camp. They can be on a crew within 3 weeks, which is pretty amazing. I've got buddies that have plumbing HVAC companies. You're talking 3 years, not 3 weeks.
Yeah,
so,
exactly.
I purposely wanted a low kind of barrier to training so that I could bring people up to speed. But pros and cons, because you get, I started Revive. We had 15 businesses on Google for cleaning. And on last check, we were over 100. So there's just a lot of competition too.
Wow. It's amazing how similar your resource ladder is to the one that I have talked about, which is, you start with that admin, you then go to service delivery, which in your case is people on the tools in the field, followed by marketing, sales, and then ultimately building out your leadership team. And that's kind of the scaling sequence. So it's interesting that we're very much aligned there. So when you look at those businesses that ultimately scale versus those that reach this plateau and can't break through, what's the key differentiator between either those companies or the leader? Yeah,
it's a few things. One is I think any business on earth, the business, if no one catches anything on this podcast other than this line, I'd say every business on earth is only limited by one thing, and that is the psychology of the owner. I'm working on a book right now, actually, and I have a whole chapter dedicated to how the owner's thinking and mindset, because that is the biggest thing that falls from that everything else stems on. But a couple other key things, like when I look at the clients I've coached and the businesses I've built, I think skill set number one is the owner's got to be really good at attracting a team. We hear A players, winners, whatever you want to call them. I've just traditionally found that nothing big or worthwhile can really get built without like a team. And I tend to see the owners that are poor leaders or micromanage their team, or they're constantly trying to pay their people less, or whatever the case may be. Maybe they're prone to anger and have tempers, or I've seen it the other way too. In my case, I tend to be very loosey-goosey with my management. I'm like, it's all good. You're late. It's not a big deal. I'm just naturally don't think anything on earth is a huge freak out deal. So in managing, that's actually not great. So I'm a great startup, but I'm not a great hold the line accountability. So we've seen both layers of it, but I'd say lock-in psychology, 1. 2 is all coming down to leadership to attract the team. And the last one I'll give from success to not would be, I think, most owners underestimate how fanatical they need to be about promoting their business. I'll call it the early days, like the first 36 months. I actually don't believe in much work-life balance just because I've done it for businesses from zero to growing. Those first 36 months, I mean, I was not living this beautiful happy hour work-life balance life that I'm living now. So I was just obsessively 5.5 days a week marketing my business. Yeah. Chamber of Commerce every Friday for over a year. I'd go out for coffee with a business owner locally just to get their business cards. I would be door knocking in neighborhoods, doing anything to really get the word out there, because that's the biggest killer of small business today, and it's always been, is obscurity. Just no one knows who you are or what you do. So whether you're going to go online or go offline or do both, I think that's the third thing in my book. I call it passionately promoting. You just got to be go, 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 like the Energizer Bunny. Yeah. So those would be the big three, I would say, differentiate. Like green light, this thing gets lift off, or like red light, you're like the 80%, you don't get to your 5th year birthday of starting a business, which is just like the sad reality. But that's just how freaking hard this thing is to grow it. I wish the word effortless and business like didn't exist together, because it just is not been my experience.
No, me either. It's usually exactly the opposite of that. But I'm curious, in home service, I mean, is it possible and something that you see or advise where somebody goes in day one and is not wanting to be that operator, not wanting to be on the tool or on the truck, and how would you go about doing that if that was your objective?
Yeah, we've definitely seen it. We've seen companies go, $0 to $1 million in the first couple seasons, which is just not normal. But usually that owner will have some level of chops in building a business before, or having a high income job, or just think about the business in a very high level of like switched on business. Yeah, but for us, like, we've helped 357 companies grow. In top of my head, I don't have data, but that'd be like less than 5 of the people we've had. So it's very rare, but it can be done. I think if you want to go quickly, what I've seen work is you generally have one. I've seen it in partnerships before. One case I'm thinking of. You have one owner that is like sales marketing all freaking day. And then you have a right-hand guy or gal who is like the operator. And they're okay to not really show profit the first couple of years, because they're just ripping it up to whatever revenue they want to get to. So seen it done. We more specialize in someone who has more time than money, but not saying it can't be done if someone's got a couple $100,000 and a big mindset and gets their systems dialed from day one with a good brand. It's absolutely possible.
Interesting. So I'm curious, you touched on, having maybe that partner that's focused all day on sales and marketing. Mm-hmm. What's working right now in home services around lead generation? What are the things that you want to double down on in 2025?
Good question. Well, I'll tell you this, it's got more expensive. Definitely. I mean, I used to see the last decade, I could put $1 in to the machine and spit out 10. And I preached that for over a decade, like a 10-to-1 ROI marketing. And it still can work, but it's becoming less of a normal thing. So what I usually see for a benchmark now is if you're going to go into online paid ads, whether that's Facebook, Google, PPC, I usually like a benchmark to get 5 times your money if you can. I definitely see less, have seen more, but that's usually where we're at now. But to answer your question, like, tried and true methods are always great. I think most service business owners miss. We have a really cool training on creating neighborhood buzz that's basically helped me get $4 million of sales in 40 neighborhoods that I work in. And it's just like, get your signs up, wrap your trucks, ask for your reviews and referrals, go door knock the neighbors, leave flyers. But it's like full on assault of these neighborhoods that were just like rocking. So that's worked every single year I've been in business. So that would be the first one. The other one though is about 5 years ago, my business went from 155 grand in sales to 582 in a year. Literally just that was the year that we got discoverable on a Google search. So, I put in like a significant 5-figure investment to getting our SEO going. So that's still working great. If you've got a business that gets multiple calls in a day to your Google business profile and you don't have to be paying for those leads, that's great. But one other one is the Google LSA ads. I don't think people are talking enough about. That's where if you search in your area for, in my case, window cleaning in Surrey, my business would have a little green check mark that says, Revive Services, give them a call, and shows, they got 500 some odd reviews. So that's been great in members we're working with. A lot of our members could get leads for, $20 to $40, like a good quality lead as well. And that's great as well. So that's what we're seeing working right now. Everything getting more expensive. But again, back to the owner's mindset, I would say if you want to get to that 7-figure mark, you've got to be willing to put in at least $100K into your marketing funnel and make sure that you watch that thing like a hawk, because you could put 2 or 3% of your revenue back in your business, but in today's day and age, you're just going to kind of stabilize. So if you want modest growth, I would say 4, 5, 6. If you want aggressive growth, 7, 8, 9, 10. And if you want to go to the moon, you might be a 10 to 15% of your overall revenue back into the business. But again, all back to the owner's goals. Some want really tight profitability. Some want really big growth. So, figuring out what you want and then building the plan for that, I think is great advice as well.
Yeah, that makes some sense. And I'm assuming that also differs from how new you are in that market. If you're starting a brand new market, you may need to be a bit more guerrilla and a bit more aggressive than if you already have a brand.
That's the best thing to say too. Like, we've even toyed around with the members we work with. Do we add in some sort of a let us rip your brand apart and make a new one? Because we've got a couple key partnerships that our members will go work with outside of our umbrella, which is totally fine. But man, do we see a lift in the companies that, a rebrand, to build out a new brand could be 10, 15, 25K. It's not a inexpensive investment, but over the long term, if you look at a 2-horse race and one, I'm going to put 100K into marketing a crappy brand, and the other I'll put in 125K to get my brand investment back, that branded one, that horse will do better, I believe, in the race. So you got to look at that too. We see some members come in. I was joking with our head sales growth advisor. He's just like, man, the email signatures I see from these guys coming in are just like, that's the first thing, let's attack. Let's get you a new brand. So that's a great key point. It makes marketing go better. And most tradesmen make a big mistake. Tradeswomen, trades guys, they build their brand around as if they would be hiring them. But 95% of the time, the business owner is not their ideal customer. And in my case, if you can do this for 16 years and make some money and live in a nice house, then you become your affluent ideal customer. And that could take some time. It could take a couple years, but that should really be your goal, that this business catapults you to a new economic class that you're then hiring your own company back. That should really be the goal. And that is done with everything we've chatted about, but also having a really great brand.
I've seen that time and time again, where a business owner looks at themselves as the avatar for their prospective buyer, and it very often is off. Even with best intentions, it's off. So what's your recommendation? How do you suggest people approach brand and trust building, and how do they truly understand that kind of buyer persona or that avatar?
Yeah, I mean, without going to like corporate-y and get a focus group and all this stuff, like what I did is, it's funny, my wife today, her parents were one of our first customers at Revive as we started dating. I'm like, okay, boys, don't do a bad job on this house. But I chatted to Alex's parents a lot in the early days of Revive when I was crafting like brand colors and what does it look like. And in our case, we donated 3% of our revenue to sponsor water wells around the world. I was deep diving on their psychology over dinners, lunches, whenever I was at the home. So it's done like very informally, but they were in a pilot study for Shack Shine as well early in the day. And, I joke with them because one of their quotes they're doing, they're walking around their house for 35 minutes on the phone trying to get an estimate. And finally they're just like, this is insane, right? But like, you don't know what you don't know. So I think start chatting to some of your best customers, and everyone knows those customers, like who pays the bill right away, who leaves the tip, who maybe gives you a drink or a beer at the end and wants to, like, there's those certain people you vibe with. And I always ask the question, and I tell my team this, what client do we want to have 1,000 of, right? And you can usually make a few key things of, where their kids go to school, what kind of cars they drive, and not to get too deep in the psychology, but just generally understanding how an affluent customer thinks. I would start talking to them. And then, I'm always a fan of shortcutting and just hiring a professional. I think if you've got some money and could get someone to rebrand your company for 10-ish grand, I think is a great idea to save yourself a lot of screw ups, because it's like color, it's logo, it's everything. If I built it all again with Revive, I'd probably make the brand look even better. But you look at something that's 8 years old, and it's all got to be run in the context of timing as well.
Yeah, I also think that, to your point, you can go hire a graphic designer that can do great colors and logo, but if you haven't done the basic blocking tackling to understand your customer base, then it's just a matter of you could be going after the wrong feel, and so it's really critical to understand that. I'm curious in your area in particular, and I know you're servicing or coaching folks all over the country, but in your area, weather is a big deal. How do you think about and manage lead generation to account for this fact that you just got seasonal fluctuations, and how do you keep the business steady or at least viable during those times when
for sure
weather doesn't allow?
It's tough. I've been doing this a long time, but generally what I found for our business model is we basically take January and February and like light it up on fire. So we run our revenue effectively on a 10-month operating season, which is still pretty good. I'm outside Vancouver in Canada. That's why I talk a little funny. And, we're based in I call it a small city of Surrey that has almost 600,000 people now. But we really service the southern part of that city, which is close to the ocean. The weather's good. The people got money here, and they'll drive 45 minutes into Vancouver, our city hub, not so dissimilar to a lot of US cities. The affluent will commute in for their jobs or like hybrid it from home, but they're in $2 to $4 million houses that they're not going to go to Home Depot, and it's just a matter of who are you going to hire. So, I studied income all across the country and found this little pocket. I remember it stood out to me door knocking 13 years ago. We got like 15 leads in an hour in this one neighborhood, and I'm just like, how did that? Usually we'll be lucky to get one. If you get two, you're dancing for joy. We got 15, and I was like, what is with this neighborhood? And I did some more digging, and there's no ChatGPT at the time, but it's like, this subdivision is among the most wealthy in the whole country. I'm like, why am I not building my cleaning business here? So I kind of looked into a little bit of the stats to see, what's working and kind of where the money is. So that's where I really chose to kind of build the business. But I'm sorry, I forgot your original question.
No, I was asking about seasonality, but I'm actually really intrigued by the fact that you just touched on this. Because I think so many businesses, you can be whatever trade or even profession, and if you're serving folks that don't have the means or the motivation, then you're constantly just pushing against it, right? You're just whereas why not provide a service to people that have crazy amounts of money and can easily pay for it, and they're not going to be troubled with that. To your point, they're not going to drive to Home Depot. They're not going to get up on their own roof and try to remove moss.
Yeah, it effectively just came to like, how could you build the best brand and stand out with a really high reputation in a really red, bloody ocean of, pretty unprofessional service providers. So I think that's how the business grow. But yeah, like you could say we were lucky to be in this area, but it's like, no, there was some mindset behind that. But back to the seasonality, because I want to hit this. We struggled for years laying off our team. It was only a few team members at the time, but it's tough when you have a technician that cleans houses with you until October, and then the season turns, a little bit of gutter cleaning, and then they're gone. So I traditionally built this like really robust student workforce that I came up with through college. And so it wasn't weird to me to have someone work for 4 or 5 months for my company. But as we started to grow, as 2019, that the business really turned a corner, and we got into holiday lighting pretty early on. And the first year we did a sale model. We would sell the customer our lights, which was fine. But in 2020, we switched to this lease model that the last 5 years has been the best thing that we have. Our clients, we take care of all the storage in our heated facility. Everything's labeled. We come out year after year, put up the lights that Revive owns, and it comes with full guarantee, warranty, et cetera, et cetera. So that gave us now money. October, we do all of our re-ups, we call them, from the previous year. November, we take on new Christmas light clients, and we go hard to like December 17, 18, 2-3 weeks off over Christmas. And so long as weather's okay, January's all takedown. February just sucks. It's always sucked. I don't know why that is, but it just does. And then March, we start making money again. So that's just like the cycle that has worked good for us. But it still hurts as a business owner, because we are, north of $25,000 a month to keep the salaries paid and the office rent. And we always start March 1st in a pretty heavy loss, but we come out of it when you start, ripping $130,000 months cleaning. There's not a lot of material costs in this business. So, paying, I'll wrap up. I just made the decision to pay my people through the winter and not deal with turbulent turnover in the springtime. So that's traditionally what I've done. I still stress out over it. I was telling my service manager, she's like, Dave, you've been doing this how long? This is like every single winter, but it's still something
stings
in your brain. It still stings, but it's like, if you look at it on a 12-month thing, you drop $50,000 down, you come out of it, you make more. It all works, and I would rather pay that $50,000 than go hire a brand new 7-8 person workforce. Yeah.
I love that idea on the leasing of the lights. I haven't seen that model, but that's really cool.
Yeah.
Is that something that is happening more and more in the industry?
It is, yeah. We have, I would say, for our cleaning companies we consult, I would go so far as to say 40 to 50% of them have some tie back to lighting through the winter. Of course, some companies we work with are in Florida, and they stay super busy all the way through Jan and Feb with snowbirds, so that's not consideration. But a lot of our, not a lot, but a handful of our members are getting into permanent lighting as well, which if you walk some nice neighborhoods in your area, these are the lights that actually go in your soffits, and they can get programmed through an app, and super cool. So there's a bit of competition with the up and down light installers, but
versus permanent.
But then you can sell them service, etc. There's pros and cons, but for an average house, you could be $6,000 to $8,000 for permanent install versus Christmas light. Once the first year's done, you could be $800 on a re-up. So it just comes down to if you're. I'll end with this: if you're staying at the same house for, I think I figured it out, it's like 7 years or above, you're better to go permanent. But if you're planning to move or anything happen, you're better to just write that check every year. So whichever way works. But those are kind of two options we're seeing in the lighting game right now.
Interesting. What other trends are you seeing in home service space, and what do you think is going to kind of shape the next couple of years?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think we can do a chat without hitting on AI. We could do a whole one on this, but I think what I'm seeing is, we work pretty closely with Jobber, who's like one of the leaders for sure in the tech space for home service businesses. And they're plugging in now, kind of this administrative assistant through AI voice that, a customer like yourself could call in and you'd actually talk to our AI agent, that we could get your address and email and store some information. So that's kind of a very new thing that is happening and is pretty exciting. As far as robots replacing in home services, there's all kinds of theories on this. We see it, right? I coached a company. They went out and bought, against my advice, but they did it anyways. They bought a $40,000 drone cleaning dealio because it was cool. And, I just don't know that that's a thing yet. But in time, I think if we do a check-in in 5 years from now, I think it'll be more of a thing. And I think in 10 years from now, it'll be a real big thing. So I think that's all coming down the line. But I'm not the AI dude that's like disruption, freak out, like change this. I think I read up on this stuff weekly. But right now what we're seeing is a lot in the, as far as like the office admin, that's of interest. Copywriting's a big one too. I mean, you want to talk marketing. We do about 5 to 6 emails per year to our base. We run that all through Jobber, and, I tell you, using a ChatGPT or Grok on X.com, I'm a pretty okay writer, but man, does that give me a springboard. It's gotten better too. Oh my goodness, it's gotten better that I'm like, this is getting real good. And so taking that and plugging that into marketing campaigns, that's been great. Social media captions as well. That's really good. I saw Canva is now plugging in to get images edited. So there's a lot of shift. I see more of an applicability to a lot of the back end stuff of home service business by way of like, keep the browser up on your tab and go to it when needed. But I'm not hitting the alarm of like, I'm going to have a robot come in and change my next light bulb. It sounds funny now. In year 2035, I don't think it'll be as funny, but I think right now it's still very early and I've not yet seen it be like, wow, this is like a huge thing. And that's the beautiful thing to owners listening. If you have any connection in a business to home services, I think there is an element of some economic resilience and also some, I don't want to say AI proof, but a lot more AI proof than if you had a copywriting business, let's say.
I agree. What about the use of data? I mean, think about, just like AI, there's more and more access to data that's actionable about properties and property owners. How are you using that in your approach to either acquire or maintain clients?
Yeah, we haven't. It's funny. I just got on that this week. We're loosely looking at a property for sale here in our neighborhood, and I was like, "Can you give me the last 5 sold properties like this?" And it was like, this one sold for. I'm like, I texted it to my realtor. I'm like, he's like, "This is crazy. I'm going to be out of a job." I'm like, "Yeah, obviously your stuff's a little more in depth, but just to take you from like dummy to like not even knowledgeable, just like a seat at the table." I think that's what AI kind of does, but I've not yet plugged it in directly to say I can, glean all this information about a property that I could, plug in. But I think as far as data, to your point, like what is the average income per capita in this neighborhood? Hey, I live in this location. What would be the 10 best neighborhoods to target where incomes are north of 200 grand? Per household, and the kids go to private school. Like it sounds, I have not done that search, but that's what I would be starting to feed it so that I could just get, because they used to say, oh, go to the US Census Bureau or Statistics Canada. And I would always hate those websites, how like the opposite of user friendly. They're just terrible, where now if you got your browser up for any sort of AI tool, I think that's very interesting. You can, again, not be like crazy knowledgeable, but just have a seat at the table. And again, this is something your competitors like aren't, the smart ones are, but just generally they're so busy on the tools, they're not doing this type of stuff. I
think also, I mean, I'm just thinking about, your business in particular. I mean, the ability to use structure information, like show me 2-story homes with either comp or shake roofs that I know are going to build up moss, right? That's a great opportunity for you to target without even going to visit the home. Or it could be looking for indicators of people that are likely to sell their home in the next 6 months, and they're going to spruce it up, right? So being in front of those people with relevant messaging based upon data seems like a great opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's why like most of our business is residential based too, is there's this like strong recurring component too, right? Like I think a lot of owners might look down at a window cleaning business like, oh, it's a, $300 ticket. But a lot of our clients, like what we shoot for is this $15,000 LTV lifetime value. So it's kind of like winning a baseball game, hitting singles and doubles, and not, some people want the $10,000 paint job. Well, I've had enough of those, and they have $9,500 worth of costs with them. And it's just like,
Right.
So I think there's just different ways to build your business, but I don't want to let this show go by without looking at lifetime value of a customer and how you could win over the long run. Because when you get a jobber base like we have with over 8,000 contacts in there with emails and addresses, and then you start plugging in the AI prompts we were both saying, like that's pretty exciting to look at how marketing could play into that.
Absolutely. It's become that list is a tremendous asset. So, yeah. Dave, this has been great. How can people learn more about your coaching program and connect with you?
Yeah, I'm on homeservicebusinesscoach.com is our website. We got all kinds of trainings up there, anything social media, home service business coach. And that'd be a great place to come say hi to me.
Fantastic. And for those that got some value out of this conversation, there's a lot of great information there. Please subscribe or turn this on to a friend or colleague that can get some value from it as well. Thanks again, Dave. Appreciate the time.
Thanks for having me on.